And when we're all done, pass this along if it could be helpful. And finally, looking at the roster, we're all from around Virginia. So 250 people have signed up for this workshop right now. We're at 181 who have joined. And we're trying to serve our students. And we don't know exactly what that may look like, but we're here together to make it happen. All right, so moving forward, we're going to start looking at some of those basic skills that would have been covered in the Classroom 101, and it was included in the email that Liza sent you. And that's first how to create a class, and we'll get into that in just a second. Now on the right-hand side, this is a very helpful resource. So if you click on, I'm on slide 5, and on the right-hand side, it says Classroom 101 resources. If we click on that, it's going to open up in a new tab. And in here, Google has provided and created, along with different educators, some very helpful resources for how to use these different tools that we're looking at in this series. So here is one for Google Classroom. If you're brand new after this session and you want to continue to explore how to use Google Classroom, this is the place to go. So in here, we have video tutorials. There are about 9 of them in here that you can go through. They're all really short, so you can watch them. It won't take any of your time, and you can also share this with your coworkers back at home. We also have tips and tricks, so how to copy a course. We will go into that, how to create a class. We'll go into those things as well, but know that you can always come back and get that additional support. Continuing down, we have other learning resources. We can see a lot of PDFs with Google Classroom tips, lesson plans that you can do, so tons of different things that you can come in and access as needed. All right, so at this point, we're going to go to Google Classroom, and there are a couple ways that we can do this. So now would be a good time for most of us to hit that escape button so that we're controlling our screen again. And at this point, we want to go to classroom.google.com. The other way that we can get there, if you're in any Google tool, like right now I'm in Drive, you can click these 9 dots. I call it a waffle menu, and it will come up with all of your Google tools, including Classroom. So let's take about 30 seconds for everybody to get to Google Classroom however you want, and then we'll reconvene in just a moment. All right, so we're back together in Google Classroom. If you've never been here before, and I know most of us were because that was part of kind of the pre-work for this course, but if you've never been here before, a couple things you might see. There might be, it might ask you, are you a teacher or a student? Please pick that you're a teacher. That allows you to create courses, and that will be very important as we're moving forward together today. And then once you've done that, if you're brand new, you'll probably have an arrow that points up to the plus sign in the top right-hand corner. That's where we're going to go to create our course. And I know most of you have already done that, but I will model this again in case some folks haven't. So I'm clicking my plus sign. We have the choice to join a class or create a class. I'm going to do create class. And in here we have these 4 different sections, these different fields that we want to do. The first is class name. It's the only one you have to do. So this one will be demo June 15th. And we can add a section, which would be like a class period. If you are a secondary classroom, you can do that. Subject, if I started typing biology, it gives these options. We'll say that I'm marine biology. And then I could do a room number if I wanted to. Again, we only have to do the first one. After we have that filled in, we're going to hit create. And Google Classroom is an amazing tool for a variety of reasons, but one of those is that it's ultra connected to a lot of other Google tools. So when I create this Google Classroom, it's also creating a Google Calendar for me. It's creating a Google Drive folder for this course, and it's creating what we have, a Meet link here, and we'll go into that in just a little bit. So it might take a minute when you hit create, and that's why, because how connected this tool is. So now I have my class, and all of us are in a class right now. And when I'm in Google Classroom, I like to start in the top left and kind of work my way through to show people what these different features are. So we're going to go ahead and click the 3-line menu in the top left. I call this a hamburger menu. You might be noticing a trend right here. And when I do that, it comes up with all of my classes. So I can click classes and that will take me back to that original view that I had with my 4 classes. I can do calendar and that might show here are some upcoming assignments that I need to grade or that my students have coming up. Then we have to do, all the classes where I'm teaching. And if there are classes in here where I was a student, those would be in a separate section. So a lot of teachers are in classroom for a variety of reasons. Some might be professional development, or maybe your principal has one where they need to push out announcements, or whatever it might be when things need to be given and then received. So you might be in here for a couple different roles. You also notice archive classes. We'll get to that in just a moment. And then finally, settings. I want you to go ahead and click on settings because there are some important ones in here that we might want to review. So within this, we'll see that it has my profile. I can say if I want to receive notifications, and I can customize this. So right now, we probably won't get many notifications because most of us, we're not in session right now. The 2 that I really like to have on are these 2, late submissions of student work and resubmissions of student work. I may not know to go back and review something that was technically due 3 weeks ago. And in Albemarle County, where I work, we are allowing students to turn in late work, I think up until late in the winter. Oh, someone's annotating. That's fun. All right, so I'm going to turn off annotation, I think. Okay, cool. So I may not know to go back and review this unless I have this checked. When I have it checked, I'll receive an email telling me that John Mitchum has turned in something late, and I'll go back and review it. The same type of concept for me with resubmission of student work. Of course, you can go in and modify these at any point and get it to exactly how you want it to be set up, but that's just kind of my own personal preference. And how do I remove? Okay. So I'm going to go back now, and I'm back in my class. We've reviewed these 3 lines. We're going to go through each of these 4 tabs at the top in just a minute, but we will start here. So the first thing that we see is the class name, demo June 15. Then we have the class code, and in a traditional time, this would be what we would give our students for them to join our class, and you might put it up on your projector and allow people to see it. We can make it really big. And that would be when they go to Google Classroom, they click join class and be able to enter that code in. For right now, we will probably do it a different way, but we'll cover that when we get to the people tab. The next things that we see, we're in Stream right now, and in here we can see any upcoming work. Your students would see this as well, so they have that reminder a few different places. And we can post a message to our students. So I'm gonna share something with my class, and this will be welcome to June 15 demo class. I'm so happy that you're here. Okay, when I'm ready, I can hit post, and now all of my students will see this when they get to my classroom. I like to think of Stream as kind of the news feed of social media, and we're probably all familiar with some different social media networks. And so this would be where anything that is assigned, your students would see here. Any conversation or post you make, your students would be able to access it from here as well. We'll come back to Stream in a little bit. The main place that we're going to spend our time is classwork. So let's go ahead and jump over to classwork now. All right, so we are in classwork. Right now, I don't have anything created yet, but we do see, you may see Meet, Google Calendar, and Class Drive folder. Remember, we said those were the tools that are integrated directly in Classroom, and we'll check out how those integrate in just a minute. The most prominent thing we see here, though, is Create. So when we click on Create, it comes up with a few different types of things that we can generate. The very first one is assignment, and really this is the bread and butter when it comes to Classroom. This was the feature that I got the most excited about back in 2014 when Classroom originally launched. We will spend quite a bit of time on that, but I do want to just quickly speak through what these other ones are. The next is quiz assignment, and this uses Google Forms. So if you've never used Forms before, this is one way that you can use Forms, is to do self-graded quizzes where you make your questions in there. It really works well for multiple choice. And then you make your answer key. And you don't have to go back and grade it yourself. You can just go in and see how your students performed. It does item analysis. So you might see, well, question 3, a lot of my students missed. I'm going to go back and reteach it. So a really cool tool. We also have the option to do questions. And this would be being able to post a really quick poll. So maybe it's when do we want to do our next office hours, and you give them 2 choices, or you can do a write-in, kind of like a discussion board. Finally, we have material. This is when I want my students to see content, but I don't expect anything back from them. So those are just a few ways that we can use this. The final thing in here is topic, and this is going to be how we organize our classroom. So let's go ahead and click, if you haven't yet, hit create, and then topic. And when we're using Google Classroom, topics allow us to, if we remember back to when we had filing cabinets in our classroom, and maybe you still do, and you had that folder for a unit that's coming up. Well, now we can start to put our resources into that organized fashion by using topics. So this is going to be Unit 1, and I taught English, so it might be poetry. Okay, so Unit 1, poetry, I'm going to hit add. And now I can start to put resources into this unit for my students to be able to see it. You'll notice all of my topics are here on the left-hand side. Right now I only have 1 topic, but as I continue through my school year, I would continue to add to them here. All right, so now that I have my topic, I'm ready to start putting some content into that topic. I'm going to go back to create and do assignment. Okay, so in here I've got my title. I'm going to go ahead and call this week 1 poetry choice board. I can give instructions, but I like to go back to that. I don't like to always work in a linear fashion when I create these. So I have my title, and at this point I'm going to go to add. So in add, we have a few different choices in terms of what types of materials I want to put with this assignment. And I can put more than one within any given assignment. I'm going to start off with Google Drive because that's where most of our resources, I'm guessing, will come from. So I click Drive, and in here, in just a second, it's going to come up with what are some of my recent ones. And I'm going to head to Drive, and I'll do this HyperDoc. When I'm all set, I'm going to click Add, and I can do more than one at once. If I wanted to, you'll notice I have 2 selected, and I'm hitting Add, and both of them come in here. Now let's talk through very briefly how these are set up. So right now we get a thumbnail, which is always helpful for me to make sure, yes, that is the right document that I want to put in there. This is hyperlinked, so if I click on it, it will open up my template. Then when I move to the right, it gives me a drop down. When I click on that, I have 3 different choices with how I want my students to access the material. The first one, and it's set up by default, is that students will just view the file. So it'll make the sharing settings so that anyone with the link can view and my kids can see it. Now this can be really helpful at the beginning of the year when you're trying to pass out maybe a syllabus that all of your students are going to look at, or maybe it's a welcome letter at the very beginning of the year and they don't need to interact with it in any way other than to just read it. So we might do student can view file for that. The next option we have, if you are a fan of chaos, this is the one for you. Students can edit file. And that means all 25 of your students are in there editing at the same time in the same document. Now I use this sometimes and I think that it can work brilliantly, but we would want to be very purposeful with how we build our students to that point. So it might, start off with a conversation about how do we best how do we best work in this environment, and then we turn it on and try it out. Sorry. I think that this works particularly well in Google Slides, because you can make groups on each slide, or each student gets their individual slide. I don't use it as much for Docs because it would bounce your screen up and down having that many people in there. The final is make a copy for each student, and this is amazing. So when I click this option, every single student is going to get his or her own template. They can do their work in. It doesn't affect anyone else. And as a teacher, I can go in and leave feedback the entire time. So this is really going to be the one that you love. This next one is my April 20th through 24th check-in. And I actually want this to be students can edit files, so everybody's doing the same one. And I'm good to go with those. I'm going to go back to add at this point. And some other things we can do, and there's not as much info or explanation for these, is link. So if I want my students to go to google.com, I can put that in here, and it's going to add their link in here. So we can build out, here are some curated resources if we wanted to be able to help them find what they need. I'm going to hit add again, this time file. I can upload something from my computer and be able to place it in here, so that can also be helpful. And then finally, YouTube. And with YouTube, I can do my search directly in here. My son is really into lizards right now, so I'm going to look that up. And we have all these videos about lizards. Now, one thing that I'd like you to take a peek at, this first video is 32 minutes long, and they probably won't watch a 32-minute video. Your students probably won't. So we want to go through and find something that might be more manageable. Maybe the 6-minute video would work, or a 4-minute video. And once we find it, we're going to hit add, and my video is now in here. And the other thing I'd really encourage you to do is, after you've added it, go ahead and click on it. It's going to bring up your ability to preview. And please watch the entire video. Please, please, the entire thing. We never know what someone has placed onto these videos, so it is important that you review every resource that you pass along to your kiddos. All right. So at this point, I've added 4 different resources in here. We can see that these have different settings, so it's all right there. I do want to quickly talk about, and this came up in a lot of emails that I've been fielding from people from our previous classroom sessions. I know a lot of us have resources and learning materials that are PDFs, and they're really helpful for that students can view file. This is great for a PDF, right? Because they don't have to make any changes to it. If you make a copy for each student with a PDF, the whole point of a PDF is that people aren't editing it. So it really does limit what you can do. So if you first change your PDF, convert it from a PDF to like a Google Doc or a Word file, then it opens up a lot more opportunity for your students to engage with it than if it's just that traditional PDF file. All right, so I'm going to bounce back to the right-hand side at this point and show you a couple other settings that we can do. I'm going to click where it says for, and I can post this to multiple classes at the same time in here. Very helpful if you teach multiple sections of the same course. The other thing I can do, and this isn't going to really show very well with this particular class, but I'll come into this one. And in here, this class has students already in it, and I can come in and select, I only want 3 of my students to be able to see this file. I'm only making it for them. This allows for differentiation. Maybe I have students who have a particular interest, or maybe these 3 students are in a group and I want them to all be able to edit that same file. I could do it this way. This also makes it where if my student, maybe I have some English language learners in my class, I can give them some additional materials. Maybe I record some of my instructions for them, and now they can access the materials easier. All right, so I'm back in here. I can adjust the points, and this can be anything from 5 points or 1 point. I can make it where it's ungraded. Lots of different choices in here. You can type in anything you want. I can add due dates if I'd like to. So this will be the 19th at 12:05 p.m. Your students can still submit after this, but it will just mark it as late. So it doesn't cut it off, no more submissions, but it will mark it. Then we have topic, and in here I only have one topic already created, but I can make additional ones directly from here if I want. And I can also add rubrics and originality reports. I'll have materials in that that cover this in our slides. We won't go over it fully right now, but know that both of these are features built into Classroom. At this point, I'm ready to assign this, and I have a couple different choices. I'm going to go up to the button in the top right, and you'll see by default it says assign. We can also see that it is saving automatically as we're going. If I click the downward arrow next to it, I get these 4 different choices. The first, again, is just to assign, and that's going to post it immediately. I can schedule it. So if we're doing weekly assignments and maybe we're still not back in the classroom, the physical classroom, I can post it every Sunday at 8 a.m. and it will, go live at that point. I don't have to do anything. I will get an email notification that it has posted. But for me right now, I'm going to hit assign, and now I have this resource. And again, it's taking a little bit because it's going to Google Classroom, or it's going to Calendar, it's going to Drive, lots of other places. And now I have my first assignment in there. Now back in this other demo class, I have a few different assignments that have already been made. And with this, here's one, level 1 skills. And if I click on this, I can see that I have 14 students in this class. It's been assigned to all of them. None of them have turned it in yet. Now, the cool thing about Classroom is that as your students submit, you don't even have to refresh your screen. It's going to just switch over from the right column to the left column as they submit. If I click on this, it comes up with here are all the ones that have not yet been submitted. I can click on Brian's. And even before he opens this file up, I can start to go in and give him feedback on what he's doing and the work that he's accomplished so far. So in here, I can see that he has made some changes. He's accomplished all of these Google Slides skills, and I can leave comments for him. So I'm highlighting this particular part, highlighting, and I can add a comment. Great start, Brian. And then I can comment, and Brian now has this comment even though he hasn't submitted anything. So let's talk about this real quick. When I was in the classroom, I taught English, and I couldn't get my students feedback on their writing unless they turned in a physical copy to my inbox, and I would then go and look, and it would take me a long time. And what this prevented me from doing, or inhibited me from doing, was giving them feedback the entire time. Now, I would do conferences with them and other things to know exactly where my students were. But this is a game changer with being able to consistently be able to provide that feedback for them. I can also add private comments to Brian. So please finish and turn in soon. This is a year late. Uh-oh. And I can post that, and only Brian sees this. His classmate, John, does not see it. And he can leave me private comments as well. Some other things that we can see directly in here. If I'm in suggesting mode, so if I make a change, so maybe I want him to delete this, it doesn't actually change his doc. It does give him the opportunity to accept or decline. So he still is autonomous in this. He can still make that decision. And some other cool things that we can do. I want to go to the next student's assignment. I don't have to go back to Google Drive to find it. All I have to do is click this arrow, and now I'm in Lori Ann, her assignment. I can, again, give feedback, give grades, things like that. So when I look at Brian, this is an ungraded assignment. If it were for a grade, I could enter that in right here. When I was all done, I could hit return, and he would receive that feedback from me. So a very simple way to be able to give feedback to our students at any point in time with these assignments and be able to have that a continual evolution and not just a one-time feedback piece. Some other things to know within here, I'm going to go back to our assignment here. And we have a bunch of different topics. We can see I have 6 different topics on the left-hand side, and then a lot of them have more than one post within them. And all of these are drag and droppable. So if I no longer want overall info to be the top, I can click week May 4 through 8 and just drag it up, and that entire topic, that entire section moves with it. I know a lot of people might have at the very top, it's always, here's the overall course materials and information we need. And then directly beneath that would be whatever unit or lesson or week, whatever, however you want to organize your class would be directly beneath there. I can also reorganize within any given topic. So on my screen right now, I have this topic with 3 different pieces, and I can flip them around and reorganize them for my students. All right, so at this point, I'm gonna go back to my slides and just kind of do a quick check-in to make sure I'm hitting the topics that we needed to. Haven't even done the first one. So we're gonna look at adding students right now, and we'll take a little bit of time with that. All right, so here we are. We've looked at the classwork tab, we've looked at the stream tab. I'm ready to move over to the people tab. And in here, I only have 1 teacher and no students right now. We previously talked about how we can use the class code, and even if you're not physically with your students, if you chose to, you could email this out to them or have it in your your welcome newsletter that's going out to parents. But the other way we can do it, and I might really encourage this, especially during distance learning, is to click where it says invite students. So, you know, we have students here. On the right-hand side is this little silhouette with a plus sign. When I click on this, it allows us to invite students. I only have a few students in this account, so I'm going to do Miles at adamseifel.com. Here we have Miles. I'm going to invite him, and I'm also going to add 1 other student, and his name is Carter at adamseifel.com, and invite. So this is going to first email them you've been invited, but the other thing it does, the next time they log into Google Classroom, we saw those cards with the different courses at the beginning. They'll have one for your class, and they'll have a button in there that says, you've been invited, do you want to join? Or something along those lines, and they would just click yes, and it would add them to the class. Some other things that we can do, now that I have Carter in here, I can email him directly from here. I can remove him. Let me switch again to another class. Okay, so here Carter has already accepted the invitation. When I click on his name now, I get the action to mute him as well. So if we are doing a discussion in the stream and Carter maybe is not developmentally or maturity-wise able to post and do so in a respectful and good digital citizenship way, I can mute him for the time being until I can wrap back around with him. And I can also email his guardian. We'll look at how to do that in just a minute. And I can email the student. Okay. Back in here. If I needed to add a co-teacher, so maybe you have a collaborative teacher, or maybe your entire team, maybe you're a middle school and your entire team is trying to build one class that your students would join, you can just type them in here. So if I wanted John to be a part of this, I can do that and invite. And now John's getting this invitation that he can click on, and this would allow him to see all the submitted student work and be able to help facilitate my class. Again, very helpful. If you have a student teacher moving forward, you can use that too. All right, so I think that we've successfully covered the people tab. So at this point, I'm going to bounce back to this other course, and I'm going to move to the grades option. All right, so in here, and again, these are adult learners. I'm not showing any children, and these are all kind of fake grades anyway. This is the grade tab and how it's all organized for us. In here, it gives me a little bit of statistical information that I have an overall grade score for the class average. I can see how well they've done on any of these assignments. And I have it in here with Brian. It's alphabetized by last name, I think. Okay. All right, so here we have it. On the right-hand side, here's his average right now. And for any of these scores, I can just go in and give him points. So he got a 94 out of 100 on this assignment. Carrie Ann got a 72. Maybe she's still in the process and revising. And they can't see these scores until I hand them back. So right now, I've got 2 scores that have been adjusted on this data for challenge assignment. And I can click on these 3 dots. If you're wondering, that's the ice cream menu. And when I'm ready, I'm going to click Return All. And now those 2 folks have received their feedback. And I can also add private comments. Now, keep in mind that private comment here is going to go to all 3 of these students. I'm not going to make one right now. And then hit Return. And once I do that, these grades on the left will adjust, and they can see how they're doing. I can see how they're doing, and so forth. With any of these, if I click on the title up here, it's going to take me to the assignment so I can see those details. Some other things that we need to talk about when it comes to grades, we're going to head to the settings menu up here in the top right. It's the gear. When we do that, we get to see things like class details. We're going to skip over general for now and go to grading. Can you hear those black labs in the background? All right, they're going strong. So in here, I can choose how I want to do my grade calculation. By default, it's going to be total points. I can also make it where there's no overall grade so that they can never see that. Maybe I'm doing my feedback within Classroom, but I ultimately have to take all those scores to PowerSchool or some other learning or student information system software. So I can hide no overall grade and they don't see it. I can do it by weighted category if I wanted to, or just overall points. Show overall grade to students, I can turn that on or off. And then finally add grade category, and you can adjust that how you want. So maybe this is projects, and that's worth 45. And then we have assessments, 55, and we can add them up as we go. When we're all set with those, I'm going to click Save. And we're back to this overall view. For any of these, I can also click on the student, him or herself. So if I want to go to Brian, and this is going to show all of their assignments in this view. I can see all the ones that have been turned in, ones that I've returned back to him, and the ones that are missing. So I know, okay, Brian's doing pretty well, no work items in this filter, he's good to go. I also have the option up here to email the student or guardian directly from this view, which is pretty helpful. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to head back to our slides and continue along. All right, so far we've also covered topics, we've looked at types of posts, we've looked at how to customize our assignments by posting to more than one class or individual students. One quick note, if you are thinking about how do we bundle our content, one easy way to do that is through HyperDocs. I think we might have a few spots left for our session tomorrow on HyperDocs and choice boards. So if you'd like to see this in action, please look to see if we have any available, and we'd love to have you there. Continuing on, we've looked at how to do feedback, and there is a video in here that you can look at. Graded book and rubrics. Okay, so next we're going to look at how do we include parents, and there's a couple-step process to make this happen. So initially, if we want to include parents, we are going to go up to the settings gear once again. And this time, again, passing class details. And now in general, this is where we're going to hang out. So in general, there's a one button click that we have to do to set this up. And that is where it says Guardian Summaries. We just want to make sure that's blue. Now, this is a setting that your district may or may not have turned on. So if you don't see this as an option, you might want to contact someone in the your district's technology department. Let's see what this looks like. Okay, so I'm going to click See Example. And once it's set up, you don't have to do anything ever again. It's going to automatically make these summaries for the parents. In here, it's going to tell them what missing work their student might have, what upcoming assignments are going on, if there are any class activities, and all of this comes out. Now, they won't be able to see discussion posts, so they won't see other students in the class whatsoever, but they will get this information about their own child. Continuing down, here is the example of what it might look like. So missing from last week, there are 2 assignments. So I would be able to go talk to Felix and say, hey son, let's go back and take a look at this. I can see, well, these 2 assignments are due next week. And then here are any of those posts or class activity that happen in the given week. And I can go back and, oh yeah, American Literature, his teacher's Mr. Gonzalez, and I can go in and email if I have any concerns with this. And they can choose their settings. I think they can get a daily summary, they can get a weekly summary, and again, that is up to the parent. So once this is set up, we're going to go back in here and let's see. So I need to find a class where I already have students who have joined. So in here, people, last, okay, one more try. Okay, so Carter has already joined this class and I've already linked his parent guardian. So if I wanted to, I could invite guardians and type in their email addresses. So this was Adam Seipel, and then it would send an invitation to the parent. And once Carter is linked to a parent for my class or another class, they don't have to relink it for every single course that they're a member of. So that is a one-time deal, and then they can get those summaries created for them. Very, very helpful. Okay. Quizzes. We have this material in here that we can go back and review. I will open up a quiz real quick that you can take a look at. So here we have a quiz for this course. And I can see Brian's response in here. So he has his name, and we have our different questions. And these are just kind of silly questions about me. So it wasn't really a content-based thing. And I can see how he performed on each of these. Now I'm going to head back here and find this assignment overall so that I can show you what data the teacher gets. Okay, so in just a second, we have behind the scenes, the edit view for the teacher. I'm in question mode right now where I'm creating them, but if I flip over to responses, I can see how people have done. So the very first thing I see in here are the insights. So this tells me how my students are doing. Not too great on this, and that's fine. It was kind of, again, just kind of a joking type of question about me. The average is only a 42.55, so I probably will need to reteach this. I get the range. Some people got 0, all the way up to one person got 80. Then I can come in and it tells me what are those frequently missed questions. And this lets me know, while driving through Charlottesville in 2005, where did I stop to eat? Only 4 of the 47 got that right. Well, I need to go back and reteach this, and I need to reteach it to everybody. If I see a question in here that maybe 35 of the people got right, I might go and do smaller group instruction and try to get them caught up and let the people who have already shown mastery continue to move on. Some other things that I can do, I can click to release scores, and that's going to email each of these 47 people with a summary of how they've done. And then I get these charts for each of the questions, and I can post these anywhere else, and it'll continue to update live. So very, very helpful. The other cool thing that this does is in here, go to graded, and I can have it where it imports a grade. So I'm going to click import grades, and it will bring those scores in for my students here. So as I scroll down, maybe I have to refresh, and it will have those in here and then entered into my gradebook as well. So very, very helpful. Don't know why it's not showing up right now, but I'm not going to get hung up on it. Okay. All right, this next one is often a favorite. That's why I like to save it towards the end. If we go back to stream, we can select a theme. So by default, based on if you added in a subject for your course, it's going to add a theme. You can customize this as well. So I'm going to click select theme. And in here, you have plenty to choose from. So again, I taught English, and so I can select, let's see, we'll do this one here, select class theme, and it will change all of the color within this particular class. You can also do a custom one, so you can upload a photo. I've seen a lot of people use GIFs lately to do some cool stuff and have them move through here as well. All right, so continuing on, we've kind of jumped around this a few different times, and that's the Meet link. Okay, so I know many of us over the past few months have been doing distance learning, or we've all been doing distance learning, but many of us have been doing it using video conversations with our kids. So one way we can do that is by using Google Meet. It used to be called Hangouts Meet, but now it's just Google Meet. And I love this tool because it is so secure for you and your kiddos. So with this, to turn it on, we're going to go back to our settings in the top right, scroll down a little bit, and right beneath where we had Guardian summaries, we have this option for Meet link. The first thing we can do is toggle whether or not it's visible for our students. I would have this off until right before you go into one of these meetings with your kiddos. So I'm going to turn it on right now. It gives us a link. I can reset it. So I would encourage you, after every one of your meetings, go in and reset it so that your kids don't go back and try to reopen one of these meetings. And once you have it correct, we're going to hit save, and your students will see it right when they get into the class. They'll also see it in the classwork tab with this Meet. So I'm the teacher. I'm ready to go to our meeting. The day before, or a couple days before, I might put in, we are meeting at 10 on Monday. See you there. And 5 minutes before that, or 10 minutes before, I might turn that link on so they can see it. And then when I'm ready to launch, I'm going to click here. And it says we'll be able to join in just a moment. They need access. Now this won't work right now because I'm already using my camera for the Zoom. But when I'm ready to launch it, I can hit join. And the really cool thing, if I copy joining info and then try to take it over to this other account that's not in the same domain, it's not in the same district. Oh, that's not what I meant to do. So I just want this here. If I try to copy this over, this account won't be able to access because they're in 2 different school districts. So right now it's getting me ready, but in a second, I'm going to ask to join and it won't let me in. This is amazing because it only allows our students who are in that class to be able to access and know what link it is to be able to get into the meeting. I love this. And that's really the reason why we didn't use Google Meet for these sessions, because of how secure and locked down it is. It would have been very challenging to accept and bring everybody in when there are 200 people in this course. All right, so some other ways that we can engage with community as we're using Google Classroom. We can do it in the stream, where maybe I make a post, what's one thing you learned this week? And I can post, and my students can come in and just add as a class comment. Another way that we can go about this is by, in the classwork tab, clicking create and doing a question. So, what have you learned? We can do a short answer, or we can do multiple choice. Maybe a lot, so much. And when I'm set, and again, I can post this to multiple classes if I want, I'm going to ask, and that little poll is going to go into the stream so that my students can see it. There we go. So they see this, they would click and be able to respond. All right. Some other features that we briefly talked about that we will mention right now, there is an option to do an originality report. So this is looking to make sure that your students are doing their own work. Now, just keep in mind that you can only use this, I think, 3 times per course per year. So maybe keep it for those larger assignments, the comprehensive ones, to make sure that our kids are practicing good digital citizenship. And here's a video that you can watch on how to do that. We've already talked about Meet and discussion post. So at this point, we are really wrapping up. Please note that with Google Classroom, there are mobile apps for both Android and for iOS. And they offer some pretty cool features. So in there, you have the file, maybe your students submit their work. You can draw your annotation. So use your finger, or if you have a stylus, you can do that. You can also record videos in there. So if you wanted to give feedback, but do it using your face and your voice, you can do that and add some human interaction that way too. If you are a district that uses Chromebooks, you can install the Android. You may be able to install the Android app on the Chromebook, and maybe it's a preferred experience for you or some of your students. All right, so as we wrap up, I know many of us have just ended the school year, or you're about to, and you might have a class. Some of you may have been using Google Classroom over the last few months or years. If you are ready to archive your class, here's some suggestions that we can do. So I'm back here in this class that has a lot of work in it, and I want to reuse that basic framework for next year. So I'm going to click on the 3 dots in the top right corner of my class, and I can copy that entire course. When I do that, I can rename it however I want. When I'm set, I'm going to hit copy. Now, I've already done this. It might take a couple minutes for it to go live, but here's an example of one of those that I did. When I go into classwork, I still have all of my topics. It's all organized. I still have all of those assignments and materials. It's all in there too. But you'll notice that it's all listed as a draft and it's grayed out. When I'm ready to do groups walkthrough, all I have to do is click Edit Material and hit Post. And now that material is available and published for my students to be able to go and watch. And now that they have access to it. It's very, very simple to do this, and I would really encourage you to make a copy of your course at the end of each year so that you don't have to start from scratch the next year. The next step that we would do is we're ready to archive or remove the previous class. So we can do that by clicking our 3 dots again and do archive, and that will clean up this space. It does tell you that it's not going to affect any of the files for you or your students that are in Google Drive. You can always go back to it as well. And we could find those by clicking the 3 lines at hamburger menu and then archive classes. And all of those past ones are in here too. If you ever needed to, you can click the 3 dots and restore, and all of those come back. All right. So at this point, we are wrapping up. If you want to learn more, you can always go to the Google Teacher Center and be able to get additional resources about Google Classroom. I do want to thank you for joining. If you have questions, you can always connect with me by going to my website or finding me on social media. I want to thank Eric and John for moderating today. This has been amazing. I feel like we've flown through this. I also want to thank Vassal, Pam, and Liza for putting these sessions on for free so that educators around the state are able to learn and prepare as we get ready for next school year. And I want to thank you that you're dedicating your Monday morning to coming in and improving and getting new information as an instructor, as a teacher. Some final things in here. I would love your feedback. So if you can go to bit.ly/Vasselback, and when you go here, there's a short form that you can fill out. At the very end of those feedback questions, there is a question that, would you like to receive a renewal certificate? If you click yes, there are just 2 questions. When you fill that out, it will email you a copy of your certificate. It might take about half an hour or so, but you should get it sometime today. And I just want to thank you guys so much for being in here with me today. I know we moved pretty quickly, but please keep in mind that we have all of these resources that are in the slides that you previously got. And at this point, if you have any questions, you can feel free to unmute and ask those questions. After you've done your feedback, you can check out at any point, but we'll take about 10 minutes for a Q&A if you'd like to. Thank you, guys.
Have you ever known anyone to use this with kindergarten?
I know that folks are using this with kindergarten. What I would encourage you to do is to try to adopt as many visual cues within the classroom as you can. So some ways that we can do that. My older son is 7. I know that he responds very well to short videos. So I would use quite a few of those, and then also being able to use comics in here as a way to help practice those verbal skills. Some other things that we can do when you're in the create option, there is a choice to be able to use emojis in here that could, again, let us visually know here are some upcoming assignments, or this is for my parents. Now, okay, it is coming up. Cool. So if I wanted it to be, this is something that your parents need to check out, maybe I go in and find this guy. Or if it's a learning target, I can go in and find a target icon or a quiz or whatever it might be. Hopefully we're not doing too many quizzes in kindergarten, but you could go in and add those in. So here's my target, and they know, oh, I need to go in and do this assignment in here, or maybe there's a book icon or video icon that I can use to help leverage that as well. And then I would also encourage you to really think through using the mobile app to be able to give that feedback. I know a lot of kindergarten teachers might have access to an iPad, and being able to record your feedback to your students, or even record your instructions to them and put that video in here so that they're not reading all of this information here, but they could watch you through it. I hope that was
so that's one of, I'm sorry, that's one of the questions that I was, one of the things I was wondering about is, I just had a workshop on creating YouTube videos for students, like, forming the letters and that kind of thing. So I could create those videos and then I could put them in here for their parents to use with them at home.
Yes, 100%. That would be that'd be really good.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
I just want to ask, just clarify what you just said. Did you say that in the feedback we could, like, in comments, we can put videos too to individual students?
If you are using a mobile device, then in there's an option when you're within the student's assignment for like a little paperclip. And if you click on the paperclip, one of the options is to use the camera, and you can record your feedback that way and then pass it on to them. One other way, and this will be covered in tomorrow's session on accessibility tools is to use a screen recording software where you go through the assignment that they turn in and you can talk and give the feedback. You can also highlight or circle different things and then give them the link to that video as a comment. So they click on it and can watch the video and be able to really understand that concept and hear your voice and make it more human.
So along the same thing you were mentioning, Adam, so a whiteboard app that can be connected to this, is there one?
Yeah, so Google has a program called Jamboard that is not often used, but is definitely a part of their suite, and you can do this in Google Drive. So Jamboard would be a good option. I saw yesterday that it's going to be integrated into Meet so that you'll have the opportunity to do the whiteboard directly in there as well.
And can you see what the kids respond in that whiteboard, or is it something just they see what I put on the whiteboard?
You could make it where you make your template in Jamboard and then post that and they get their own copy. And then you could just go through each student's for sure.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Other questions out there? Uh-huh.
Yes. I work with a teacher and she has classes that are already in. So when I go to click on the plus sign at the top in the right corner, it's only showing the classes she's created. I want to create my own classes, but it's only telling me to join the class.
Okay. And this does happen somewhat frequently. What you'll want to do is contact your district's technology folks. Maybe it's making a ticket and requesting that you are added to the teacher Google Classroom group, and that will resolve it for you. It's a really simple fix and just not something that you can do on your own.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I like to make student choice boards with Google Slides.